Tonight, I want to stand with you on a quiet pier and look at an old ship that refuses to give us a simple answer. The story is famous. A hero sails home. Years pass. Salt eats wood. Ropes fray. Nails rust. Piece by piece, workers replace what the sea has taken. One day, nothing original remains, and a tiny, stubborn question stands up and asks, is it still the Ship of Theseus? Keep that picture. Now step into your morning. You wake, stretch, check your phone. You drink water. You read a text. You remember who you are, or you think you do. Cells in your body have turned over. Beliefs have shifted. Your voice has changed. Some memories are soft around the edges now. Another small, stubborn question rises. Am I still me? I think we live inside that question. It is not a crisis. It is a compass. It points to the truth that life is maintenance, not museum care. We are under renovation, and that's not an insult. It is a promise. Look again at the ship. Tourists take pictures. A guide says some planks are new. A kid asks which ones are original. The guide smiles and says, it depends what we mean by original, and what we mean by ship, and what we mean by mean. That's cute, but it is not a trick. It is an invitation. Because the test on the dock is the same test at your kitchen table. You carry rooms that no longer exist. You can still hear the floorboard that squeaked in your childhood home. You can still feel the steering wheel of the first car you drove, even if it is a metal cube now. You still know the shape of a friendship you haven't called in years. Your life has been replacing parts for a long time. Maybe the point isn't the parts. Maybe the point is the pattern that keeps holding when they move. Think of a jazz tune in a small bar. The musicians change, the tempo changes, the solos go wandering. The melody remains. We recognize it not by the wood of the instruments, but by the shape of the song. That is how memory feels from the inside, not a perfect archive, a living remix. We do not store moments whole. We store stories about moments, and we rewrite those stories as we grow. That can be beautiful. That can be inconvenient. Both can be true on the same day. When you say, that's not me anymore, you are not lying. You are naming a new plank. When you say, I don't know what got into me, you are catching the pattern flicker. When you say, I finally feel like myself, it is like a needle dropping into a groove it was meant to find. The record plays clear. You recognize the tune. This country, with all its noise, understands reinvention and clings to nostalgia in the same breath. We chase upgrades, new years, new jobs, new coasts, new diets, new apps that patch bugs we did not know we had. Then we hold tight to old names, old shirts, old diners with new paint, high school reunions that soften the past. We rebuild and we remember at once. If identity were a business, America would be the factory and the antique store. The Ship of Theseus would feel right at home here. Plenty of spare parts, plenty of stories, plenty of arguments about what counts as real. Your body is not a statue. It is an orchestra that plays while the chairs are swapped. Bones remodel, skin renews, neurons rewire, hormones change the lighting without asking. You are biological jazz. You are also a building made of history. A scar is your body remembering. Muscle memory is your body predicting. A phantom ache is your body struggling with a map that moved. Trauma can be a fire alarm that keeps ringing after the smoke is gone. Love can be a window that finally opens a room that never had light. If you feel inconsistent, that is not failure. That is a status report from the worksite. If you feel steady in chaos, that is not denial. That is a through line that held. Names help us hold the line. the one on your mail, the nickname only one person uses, the new name you chose when the old one pinched. Names are handles, but under every handle there is something you cannot mispronounce. It is not a word. It is the felt sense of you when you stand alone in the fridge light at midnight and no one is asking for anything. It sits next to you on long drives. It signs the papers when your life changes and you tell no one for a month. That is your signature. Parts can change. That does not. Philosophers push the ship further. They say, imagine someone saved all the original planks and built a second ship in another harbor. Which one is Theseus's? The one with continuous repairs? Or the one with original material? I think the answer depends on what you are trying to honor. If you honor the story of never stopping, you choose the ship that kept sailing. If you honor the matter itself, you choose the ship made from the old wood. Identity is not a yes or no. It is a claim you make with reasons. Your reasons shift with your purpose. That is not cheating. That is how meaning works. People do this all the time. Adult children tell their parents, "You've changed." Parents answer, "I became." Both tell a truth. One points to parts. One points to pattern. Sometimes they fight. Sometimes they meet in the hallway and nod. I want to try a quiet exercise with you. Not now. Later, when this ends, ask yourself 3 small questions. What do I protect in myself even when no one asks me to? What old story am I dragging that I could set down without betraying anything real? What would updated but still me look like in one tiny habit? Answer from the chest, not the teeth. If you do, the ship will talk. It won't crack like drama. It will move like light on water. Change has an ethics, and it has receipts. We hear "that was the old me" a lot. Sometimes it is honest. Sometimes it is a disguise. The old you signed checks. The old you made promises. The old you helped or hurt with the same name you use today. A pattern owes debts. Forgiveness does not pretend nothing happened. It says repair is possible and history is real. Healthy mercy and clear memory can live in the same room. A person who names the planks they have swapped and the ones still rotten is doing the moral version of maintenance. A person who keeps painting over soft wood is selling tickets to a ship that will sink. Accountability is not the enemy of growth. It is the dock where growth finds fuel. We see this outside ourselves. Walk a city that survived a flood or a fire. You can feel the layers, food that remembers, music that refuses extinction, water lines on walls like tree rings. A city is a shared ship. A team loses a legend and finds another way to win. A nation revises its constitution because the world will not stand still. The parts shift. The vow remains. We pledge to patterns, not to planks. You already live with updates. Your phone is not the phone you unboxed. It changed while you slept. You do not panic after every patch. You do, however, get suspicious when the interface lies. Identity is similar. Change is normal. Deception is the problem. When someone says, "I've changed," look at the menus. Are they clearer? Are the privacy settings different? Do the old glitches return under stress? Trust is not fireworks. It is consistent behavior over time. That is boring, and that is beautiful. Loss tests us. It takes a plank and does not give it back. A person leaves, a job ends, a town forgets your footsteps, a friendship goes quiet. Grief says 2 things at once. You loved, and you cannot go back. If you let it, grief becomes a hard teacher in identity. It asks, who are you now that this piece is gone? What line can take the weight? Pain is not noble by default. but it can introduce you to the part of you that does not break. It takes attendance. It says, "Who is still here?" Build with that. You do not rebuild alone, or you shouldn't. Real love is a patient shipwright. It doesn't romanticize your leaks. It doesn't blame the waves for holes you drilled yourself. It waits. It brings new wood. It holds the light while you work. It does not demand that you stay the same. It asks that you stay true. Same is about material. True is about pattern. One turns you brittle. The other makes you strong. Every day you carry a small budget for being yourself. Some days you spend it on self-control, holding your tongue, keeping your word, passing the exit you want for the path you chose. Some days you spend it on revision, learning, unlearning, admitting you were wrong. Some days you spend it on survival, breathing through fear, calling the doctor, paying the bill. When the budget runs dry, you default to old code. Don't dramatize it. Notice it. Rest. Begin again. The pattern does not demand perfection. It asks for persistence. Sometimes life splits you into two ships, you at work and you at home, you before the diagnosis and you after, you on the field and you on the bench. When you feel split, write a letter from one ship to the other. No audience, no performance. Ask, what do you want? What do you fear? What will you refuse? Somewhere in the exchange, a corridor will appear, not a forced merger, a hallway where your shared values can walk without getting frisked. That hallway is continuity. Guard it. The old storytellers knew this long before we found clever thought experiments. Heroes return with scars. Towns return with songs and new keys. Rivers return by changing route. Survival is not stasis. The deeper myth says you are not a relic. You are a root, not a single unbroken object. A choreography that uses a body, a voice, a history, a name. The dance matters. The props can swap. If identity is a pattern, then your days are pattern practice. Keep three things close: your word. Make fewer promises. Keep more: your craft. Whatever you do with care, don't drop it just because the weather turned. Skill is a compass. Your people, the ones who help you rebuild without rewriting your story into theirs. Sit with them. Thank them. Be that for someone. Now take a quiet audit. Where did you change this year in ways that matter? Maybe you gave your body steadier ground. Maybe you left a conversation loop that always made you small. Maybe you stopped performing a version of you that collected applause but stole sleep. That is not minor. That is structural. For next year, choose one plank to retire, one tool to learn, one kindness to practice until it becomes a reflex. Legends are not born from perfect parts. They are made by purposeful repairs. On the dock in my mind, there is a small museum of old wood. The pieces are cracked and salt white, but each carries a date and a short line. The day I told the truth and paid for it. The winter I kept showing up. The moment I forgave myself without pretending I was blameless. When the world is loud and your mind is tired, walk that room. It is free. It points north. So, is it still the Ship of Theseus? I can live with this. It is that ship if it keeps its course, honors its crew, and tells the same truth about what it is for. Change parts. Change them sooner than you think. But keep the mission. Sail bravely, return honestly. For a person, the mission is even simpler. Be recognizable to your own conscience. That is the standard. Not the internet's appetite, not the crowd's clapping, not the past's nostalgia. Your conscience, the quiet witness who knows your secret name and your public intentions and checks if they rhyme. If they rhyme, you are still you. Even if the paint is fresh, some things refuse to move, so we can. A lighthouse keeps one job. It shines. It does not chase ships. It does not argue with the tide. It does not audit what counts as original stone. It keeps the beam steady. Because of that, old ships and new ships know where they are. Find your lighthouse, a ritual, a line you do not cross, a prayer said with no witnesses, a walk you take at the same time every day. It is not superstition. It is navigation. We are still at the harbor. The rope creaks. The air smells like rain. A gull argues with nobody. The ship shifts its weight as if ready to leave. The question in your hand, "Am I still me?" does not feel like a panic button anymore. It feels like a compass rose etched into your palm. You will change. You should. The world will ask you to. Time will require it. Let your change be repair, not disguise. Let your future self look back and say, "We stayed true." And if, years from now, someone who knew you then meets you again and says, "You seem different," smile and say, "I hope so." If they ask, "But are you still you?" let the answer be your presence, the way you keep your word, the way you hold a door, the way you laugh, the way you refuse to lie, the way you sit with someone who hurts. That is the signature on the hull. We sail at dawn. The map is not finished. Neither are you. That is not a problem. That is the point.